dreamt we never left home. We never had to run.
This week in game news, the Banner Saga was given a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One release date of January 12, 2016, Cloud was released for Smash Bros., and Tetsuya Nomura made a sweet piece of artwork for the occasion. Trine Free was released on the PS4 in Europe, and will be released for North America on December 22, 2015. Hideo Kojima was fired, and that's good news for him. Street Fighter V will be officially supported on SteamOS, and itch.io desktop client was released for all your experimental indie game needs. Rocket League surpassed $50 million in sales. Riot Games has sold its remaining equity to Chinese company Tencent. Bandai Namco released a strange website with a countdown that everybody's certain is for a new God Eater. Maya Alpha 0.52 was released, and System Shock 3 is officially in development. This is the Blackman and Robin game news update. To start with, this week Flipfly announced their Prototype Showdown. Essentially, Flipfly made a bunch of cool game prototypes, but only one can become a full-size game. Which will survive? That's up to your votes. You can go to flipfly.com/vote in order to download the prototypes and cast your votes. In round 1, Taxicopter went up against Doopy's Wrong Turn. At the time of production, it looks like Taxicopter is going to win, but there's still plenty of time for Doopy to make a turnaround. In emulation news, the RPCS-free emulator has made major progress. A video has been released demonstrating it running Afterburner Climax at playable speed. There are some graphical glitches, as the emulator's not nearly finished, but it's incredible to see that a PlayStation 3 game is able to run on a PC at this point in time. The PlayStation 3 is a special challenge to emulate because of its processor architecture. The cell architecture presented developers with a number of challenges and was notoriously difficult to program and optimize for, let alone emulate, hence the reason why the PlayStation 4 uses the much more familiar x86 architecture. If you've been keeping up with our show, you may have heard that Sony has been emulating the PlayStation 2 on the PlayStation 4, and using this ability to resell PS2 games to PS4 owners. They have no plans for PlayStation 3 emulation on the PlayStation 4. Could it happen? At this point, it's very improbable. The computer that's running Afterburner Climax in this video, mind you, has twice the RAM of the PlayStation 4. That said, I wouldn't say that PS3 emulation for the PS4 is impossible. Just highly improbable. In game releases this week, we're starting with a good free game. The Curse of Isios was released on Windows this week by Locomolito. It's a platformer about a fisherman's quest to rescue his daughter from Hades, and if you haven't already guessed it, it draws heavily on Greek mythology. It really looks like an 8-bit game, the sort that you'd see on the Amiga or NES. The Curse of Isios is about 45 minutes long, and you can get it for free from localmalito.com. We'll have a link to it at blackmanandrobin.com. A game called Element hit early access on Steam this week, and it's described as a real-time strategy space game for people who don't have the time to play real-time strategy space games. It's a rather interesting premise. In the game, your goal is to escape a dying solar system by mining elements and fighting enemies. It's designed around short games, and in addition to its Steam release, the developers are planning on releasing on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, as well as iOS and Android. Personally, I find myself drawn to the aesthetic of the game. There's something very soft about the minimalistic textures and lighting that the developers employed. The gameplay also sounds fascinating. Gentle, fast-paced RTS-style conquest? Sign me up. Element is now available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. If you'd rather go back, far back, the original Total Annihilation hit Steam this week. It's an old RTS set on a grand scale, and it accomplished an important first. It was the first RTS featuring 3D units and terrain. A note on the page mentions that although the original game ran on 16 megabytes of RAM and a 100 MHz processor, this version of Total Annihilation boasts an updated engine. It calls for 1 GHz CPU and 512 megabytes of RAM, so don't try running it on your Pentium 3. Additionally, it works with mods made for the original game, hence you can add your own units, maps, etc. Hopefully we see Steam Workshop integration sometime soon. Total Annihilation is available for Windows. Are you still in outer space with me? Great, because there's yet another space game out this week. Elite Dangerous Horizons. It's an expansion for the original Elite Dangerous, but it's also a standalone. Think of it as a second season. Mind you, Horizons is in early access, and there are quite a few complaints on Steam regarding the price and business model of the game. That said, the positive reviews say that it plays well, and though it could use some more content, it's generally enjoyable. Much like Elite Dangerous Horizons also has support for virtual reality. If you're sick of waiting for Star Citizen to go into beta, by the way, the aforementioned Star Citizen this week passed the $100 million mark in crowdfunding, making it the most successful crowdfunding campaign of all time. The point being, you'll be playing Elite Dangerous Horizons in virtual reality long before Star Citizen is ready. I'm quite aware that one of my favorite games, Scrolls, will be dead in a half year's time when Mojang pulls the plug on the servers. I've been searching for an alternative, and this week I thought I found something, only to be bitterly disappointed. Released on Steam this week was Star Crusade, a digital collectible card game that could be described as Hearthstone in space, because it's nothing more than Hearthstone in space. Really, besides the neat space background and different themes to the cards, from what I've been hearing, it's just a clone of a bigger game. The reviews on Steam call out the game for not innovating or being unique. Personally, I'm just disappointed not to have found something like Scrolls. It's not that Star Crusade looks like a bad game, but it draws so heavily from another that it feels pointless to try it. Are you a dedicated Star Crusade fan who thinks I'm completely wrong? Hit us up at Blackman and Robin on Twitter and let us know. Personally, I've decided that I'll at least give the game a shot. Even if it won't be my new Scrolls, I am at the very least curious to see what the developers have done with it. If I like it, I'll let you know what I think on next week's episode. If you own an Xbox One and you've been hoping for new backwards compatible games, great news. 16 games came from the 360 to the One this week, namely Braid, Deus Ex Human Revolution, Doritos Crash Course, Fable Free, Halo Reach, Hydro Thunder, Iron Brigade, Kane and Lynch 2, Motocross Madness, Miss Pac-Man, Peggle, Portal, Still Alive, Spelunky, Splosion Man, Ticket to Ride, and Zuma's Revenge. While Braid is an indie classic and Halo Reach has one of the best stories in the series, do yourself a favor and check out Doritos Crash Course. No, this isn't a sponsored recommendation. Doritos Crash Course is actually a fun, ridiculous game courtesy of Doritos. It's a bit like a game adaptation of American Ninja Warrior or Wipeout, and it's totally free.
This way!
Big brother?
He's my brother!
We're your family. I'm so sorry, everyone. I feel like I have no choice but to... Join Smash!
Nintendo held a final video presentation for Super Smash Bros. On the 3DS and Wii U. To quickly explain, in case you've somehow not heard of it, Super Smash Bros. Is the most recent entry in the Smash Bros. Franchise of fighting games that features characters from Nintendo games, but occasionally includes guests from other games. During this presentation, they showed off the moves for the recently announced Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII, along with the Midgar-themed stage. They also revealed 2 new characters coming to the game. Bayonetta, who received the most fan votes and was apparently going to be the easiest to include, so sorry Shovel Knight and Shantae, maybe next time, as well as the male and female Corrin from the upcoming Fire Emblem Fates. Corrin will be released as DLC in February 2016 alongside Bayonetta. Cloud Strife is available right now.
As with Wii Fit Trainer and Robin, you can choose to play as a male or female version of Corrin. Both perform exactly the same, so it's all up to personal preference.
Speaking of the Wii U, Nintendo has revealed 2 new maps for Splatoon. They are Piranha Pit and Anchovy Games. There's no word on when they're going to be released, but they both look pretty cool, and it seems that they introduce new elements. For instance, take a look at that conveyor belt, and notice the fan? It looks like Splatoon will be getting some interesting new features. In case you're somehow not familiar with Splatoon, it's Nintendo's own shooter starring squids. Or are they kids? These squid kids keep switching back and forth. Point is, it's a great game that Nintendo has done a very good job keeping updated with fresh content and events. It's a rather unique take on a shooter. With Splatoon, Nintendo has accomplished the impossible. Make a family-friendly shooter that's both fun to casual players, as well as more competitively focused ones. That's not the only Wii U game getting some love. Super Mario Maker will be receiving an update that brings bumpers, P-Warp doors, and Fire Koopa carts on December 22nd, 2015. Much like Splatoon, Nintendo has done a great job keeping Super Mario Maker up to date with fresh content. Just in case you've somehow not heard of Super Mario Maker, what you should know is that it's a Super Mario game that lets you make your own levels. The 6.86 update hit Dota 2 this week, bringing with it a whole bunch of cool stuff. There's the new Arcane Rune, which reduces mana costs and cooldowns, 4 new items, namely Fairy Fire, Iron Talon, Ether Lens, and most excitingly, Dragon Lance, which grants a stat boost and extends the attack range of ranged heroes. But wait! There's more! Some heroes have been changed. Death Prophet, Doom, Faceless Void, Lone Druid, and Riki have all gotten new abilities, and yes, Riki has been buffed. Again. But that's not all! A brand spanking new hero has been released this week. This new hero is called the Arc Warden, and he looks super cool. Having played around with him, I think he's pretty neat. His abilities don't really focus on doing direct damage, but more so on buffing and nerfing. His ultimate ability creates a sort of duplicate of him with an independent set of abilities and items. Hence, if you've just blown out all your abilities, you can whip out your ultimate and have your duplicate use them all over again. I have to play more of Arc Warden before I form a more solid opinion, but on the whole, I've had a pretty good time using him for pushing lanes as well as for ganks. As per usual with big Dota updates, there's also a cool free comic from Valve, this time about Zeus, who got a nice Arcana set in this update. We'll have a link to download it at blackmanandrobin.com. This week, AMD announced GPU Open. It's a software platform that brings an assortment of tools for developers to best take advantage of AMD's hardware. Mind you, both the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 employ AMD hardware. While this is good news for PC gamers, it's also great for console owners as well. Hence, you can expect more games to have better performance on AMD platforms in the future. What's special about GPU Open is that it's open source. Compared to NVIDIA's closed source tools, it means that when something goes wrong with the tools, developers will be able to find their own solutions by tinkering with the tools and then sharing their solutions with the world. Regarding Hideo Kojima, in case you've not heard of him, he's a famous game designer. He's responsible for Snatcher, the Metal Gear series, and Zone of the Enders. He's a great designer, and Konami has been mistreating him as of late. Konami, you see, has been steadily pulling away from the AAA game space in order to make more exploitative free-to-play mobile games and pachinko machines, which are for gambling and are quite popular in Asia. It's disappointing, but it's business. Unfortunately, Konami wants to keep one foot in the video game space, or something. They've been trying to cancel upcoming games as silently as they can, and failing at it, and they fired Hideo Kojima over the course of several months. It's been a cruel, drawn-out affair, and a couple of weeks ago it culminated in his not being permitted to attend the Game Awards in order to pick up a prize for his own game. Konami's lawyers literally blocked him from attending the show. Why the cruelty to Kojima? Nobody knows, and Kojima's probably not allowed to say. Whatever the case, Kojima's finally free from the shackles of Konami, and he's running his own studio, Kojima Productions. He made the announcement that they're working on games in conjunction with Sony. Anticipate a new Kojima game on the PlayStation 4 soon. Soon in the relative sense, of course, soon being a couple years down the road. That said, Kojima Productions is hiring. If you have experience making AAA stealth games, there might be an opening for you. The next game in the Tales series was unveiled this week. Called Tales of Berseria, it's set to be released in Japan on PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 in 2016. We have an official trailer, and the news that the game's story revolves around the themes of emotion and reason. No word on a North American release date, but Namco Bandai has been pretty good about Western releases for the Tales series, so we'll likely get one soon. We hope you're not sick of space games at this point, because a new trailer has been unveiled for the freshly announced Deserts of Karak expansion for Homeworld. Out on January 20th, 2016, the game is a prequel to the original Homeworld, and is set in the titular Deserts of Karak. The game's story is that the planet it's set on is dying, but in the desert sands an anomaly has been discovered, one that could hold the key to the planet's salvation. You play as Rachel Sjet, Chief Science Officer of the Coalition of the Northern Kiefid. In addition to the main story mode, the game also features online multiplayer, which is standard for RTS. The game's only been announced for Windows. There's no word on other platforms.
Expect signal loss on my mark.
By entering into space, you seek the stars. We can tolerate this no longer.
Finally, we leave you with the adorable latest trailer for Unravel, an upcoming platformer in which you play as a cute, handmade doll named Yarny. Well, that's it for this week's game news. For all the latest game news, reviews, previews, and interviews, be sure to follow at Blackman and Robin on Twitter and Instagram. Follow me at Jordan_Cameron for my own views. Don't forget to visit our site, blackmanandrobin.com, for links to all the cool things from today's episode.
I want you to execute Directive 95.
Just because something does not feel pain does not mean it cannot die.
Mammoth, do you have a god?
Yes, sir.
You do? Who's your god?
The captain.
Mammoth.
If this zone is boarded by any government agency or if we are aggressed by terrorist action, you will carry out 95. Understood?
Sir, I am afraid I cannot personally execute such a directive.
Then you will enlist the skill set of someone or something that is willing to break a mirror for metamorphosis.
Getting jiggy with it.